Now let us begin with one of the very interesting concepts in life processes, that is the process of circulatory system, one of the very important system that is required by the body, that is circulatory system. Now what do you mean by circulatory system? The word circulatory says that it is moving throughout, right? Circulatory system. Now what does this circulatory system consist of? It is nothing but circulation of blood. It is nothing but a circulation of blood. Now, if you take any part of your body, I take a pin and prick any part of the body, what comes out? Blood comes out. That means blood reaches from the top of your head to the tip of the toes. Blood is present everywhere. Now, what is that which is making this blood present everywhere? It is because of this circulatory system. Just a simple concept I would like to bring to you, children. You all have water tanks at the side of your house, right? You can just think, if this is your house, right? Water tanks are present here, and you are having syntax tanks. Now how does the water reach from this tank which you have stored the water to this syntax tank? You don't go on pulling it every day. So what do you use here? Obviously, we all use the electric motor to pull the wire, to pull the water from bottom to top, right? So some energy is required, some device is required to pull this water which is at the bottom to the top. You can lead the water from top to bottom because of force of gravity. What about against the force of gravity? Same thing takes place in our body, children. Blood can flow down. What about the blood which comes up? It requires some mechanism, and that mechanism or the device that fulfills the purpose is heart. No doubt we do not require some electricity, or we do not plug in our fingers for this heart to work. Okay? The heart works by the pumping action. It works by the pumping action. So we will study in detail about it. So this is just, I gave you a gist about how the heart, what work our heart does. It circulates the blood throughout our body. So we humans keep on continuously doing work, right? And for each and every action of us, energy is required. And this energy, as I told you, you get it because of respiration or the oxygen. This oxygen is used to break down the food molecules into glucose, right? So this energy has to be passed to each and every part. Now when I am lifting my hand, energy is required by this muscle. So the blood supply comes to this muscle, gives the oxygen to it, and then my hand raises. It is because of the supply of the blood. So humans require the energy regularly, that is with food and oxygen. And this function or energy giving function is performed by circulatory system. Now when I say circulatory system, it doesn't consist only of heart, right? Heart, along with heart, other elements are there which collaborate to perform the functions. So the circulatory system in humans consists of heart, which is an pumping organ, we already know about it, arteries and veins. Now most of you are very much in confusion state, like what are arteries and veins? Arteries and veins are nothing but they are pipe-like structures, children. They are long pipe-like structures which are present throughout our body, that is from the tip of the head to the tip of the toe. They are present. So there are two types of pipes. I can use the word here just for your understanding, but we call them as blood vessels. We call them as blood vessels. There are two types of blood vessels. One is the arteries and another one is the veins. Another is the veins. Now the next question that may arise here is, why are we having two blood vessels? One is named as arteries and another is named as veins. Children, we belong to higher organisms where we are having a complex body structure. There are large number of cells and different mechanisms, that is inhaling and exhaling takes place. Now in inhalation, as I said, oxygen is carried out, and in exhalation carbon dioxide is given out, right? Now this is related to these blood vessels, children. The arteries are the blood vessels, or you can say, don't say it as pipe, just for your understanding. These pipe-like structures, what we call them as blood vessels. The arteries, the name of the blood vessel, which is artery, it carries oxygenated blood. It carries oxygenated blood. Now, what do you mean by oxygenated blood? Oxygenated blood means the blood which is present here. The blood which is present here, it is carrying oxygen in it. It is carrying oxygen in it. Now, so arteries are those blood vessels which carry oxygenated blood. I hope this concept is clear. Now, the veins, which are another blood vessels, they carry deoxygenated blood. Now, what do you mean by deoxygenated blood? Oxygenated blood vessels, which are arteries, carry oxygen. Deoxygenated blood vessels carry carbon dioxide with them. That is why we are having two different blood vessels named as arteries and veins, right? Now this oxygen has to be carried, or this carbon dioxide is to be carried, right? A medium is required, something is required in this pipe or vessels which carries the oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the medium which carries this oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood is blood. This oxygen, it combines with the blood. Then it becomes oxygenated blood. When it carries carbon dioxide with it, it becomes deoxygenated blood. So the medium for carrying this oxygen and carbon dioxide is blood. Lymph is another liquid, same as blood, having some different properties, and it helps in the immune system of the body. We will be studying about lymph in the later. So blood and lymph are the circulatory movements through which the blood is transferred from top of your head to the tip of the tail. Now let's go with the first part of circulatory system, that is heart. As I said, heart is an organ which is an pumping organ. That means it helps the blood to reach to all parts of the plant. So it is a muscular organ. It is said that if you close your fist, okay, the size of your fist is the size of your heart, okay. So it is a muscular organ, and it is having 4 chambers. Now 4 chambers are nothing but 4 different compartments. First I will represent it with a box diagram so that it becomes easier for you to understand. So the heart is consisting of 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers and lower 2 chambers. The upper chambers are called as atrium. Okay, so this is left atrium and this is right atrium. Then lower 2 chambers are called as ventricles. This is left ventricle and this is right ventricle. Okay. Once again, the heart consists of 4 chambers, upper 2 chambers and lower 2 chambers. The upper chambers are called as atrium, that is left atrium, right atrium, and lower 2 chambers are called as ventricles, left ventricle and right ventricle. Now as I said, we inhale oxygen and that oxygen comes via lungs. It comes via lungs. Right? So this oxygenated blood, you can say it as oxygenated blood, comes from lungs and enters into the left atrium. It enters into the left atrium. And the pipe-like structure which is present here is called as pulmonary vein. A very, very important concept. One more question. Which is the only vein, I repeat, which is the only vein which carries oxygenated blood? That is pulmonary vein. Our body, the veins which are present in our body, they all carry deoxygenated blood. But the pulmonary vein is the only vein which carries oxygenated blood. Please make a note of this. Okay. Now this oxygenated blood has entered the left atrium. Now when it has entered the left atrium, it passes to the left ventricle. The blood passes through left ventricle, and there is a valve here, which you call it as bicuspid valve. It is called as bicuspid valve. Right? So now this oxygenated blood enters from left atrium to left ventricle, and from left ventricle it is having an opening. It is having an opening called a pipe-like structure, which you call it as aorta. And from this aorta, the oxygenated blood is passed to all parts of the body. All parts of a body by arteries. So this is how oxygenated blood, the blood which is carrying oxygen, which is taken from lungs, it enters to the heart by pulmonary vein. First it enters left atrium, then there is bicuspid valve, enters into ventricle, then ventricle it goes to aorta. From aorta by arteries it is passed to all parts of the body. Now this is all about oxygenated blood. Now what about deoxygenated blood? Now deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body. Here we are talking about the deoxygenated blood, the blood which is carrying carbon dioxide. It comes from all the parts of the body and enters into right atrium. Remember, at both the sides, right atrium and left atrium are the points where the blood comes in, whether it is oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood. So the deoxygenated blood enters into right atrium, and this valve is called as Vena Cava. These are called as Vena Cava. Now this deoxygenated blood enters into right atrium. Then here we have having a valve. This is a bicuspid valve, that is 2 valves, and here it is having 3 valves. So it is called as tricuspid valve. Now this deoxygenated blood enters into right ventricle, and from right ventricle it passes to the lungs. It passes to the lungs, and this structure is called as pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is the only artery which carries deoxygenated blood. This is just, I gave a gist about how the blood circulation takes place. Now what is that which is allowing the blood which comes here to go down? That means some energy or something is required. Here pumping action takes place here. What is that pumping action? Now for example, if I divide my hand into 2 chambers, now these are the upper 2 chambers, these are the lower 2 chambers. So when this upper chamber contracts, it is just like a balloon filled with water. When you press the balloon filled with water, no doubt the water which is in your hand moves down. In the same way, the blood which comes here, when this upper atrium contracts, the blood passes down. So this is contraction, right? During contraction, the blood passes down, and during relaxation, now this relaxes. blood comes in again. Contracts, blood goes, relaxation, blood comes in, right? So this action, what we call it as pumping action. Same way in ventricles also. When this contracts, this relaxes. So this is the process which continuously takes place. And by this contraction and relaxation process, it produces a sound, not duck duck sound, it is the lung duck sound. Okay? So contraction and relaxation, these actions are called as the pumping actions. I hope the circulatory system working is clear to you. Now let us go with the diagram of heart. Now this is the diagram of heart. Okay. Most of the time in exams, they ask you to draw the diagram of heart and label the parts. So it is very important that you practice the diagram of heart. As I said, heart is a muscular organ. And one more point, heart is consisting of specialized muscles, which you called it as cardiac muscles. And these cardiac muscles are the muscles which are present only in heart. Cardiac muscles you don't find it anywhere in your body except heart. Now as I said, heart is consisting of 4 chambers, right? So I had given in the box diagram. Now let us study about how it looks in the heart. Now these chambers, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 chambers which are present in the heart. The upper 2 chambers and lower 2 chambers. So this part is called as left atrium. As I said, upper chambers are called as left atrium, right atrium. Lower chambers are called as ventricle, left ventricle and right ventricle. Now let us see in heart how actually the process takes place. I'll put it in the tabular representation as well as I'll be explaining you in the heart diagram. First, what happens? The lungs. The lungs give out oxygen, right? As I earlier told you, the oxygen is transported via lungs into the blood. And this blood first enters into pulmonary vein. Once again I repeat, pulmonary vein is the only vein which is carrying oxygenated blood. Now this pulmonary vein, the blood enters via this pulmonary vein. Where does it enter, children? It enters into left atrium. So when the blood is entering into the left atrium, what is happening? It is in a relaxed state. Now it contracts. Now when this part is contracting, the blood from this left atrium enters into left ventricle. Because of the contraction, the blood is passed from left atrium to left ventricle, right? Now this relaxes. Atrium relaxes. Ventricle contracts. When this ventricle contracts, the oxygenated blood enters to the aorta. It enters into the aorta. Right? So you can see that pulmonary vein, the oxygenated blood enters into the left atrium. The left atrium contracts and via bicuspid valve the blood enters into left ventricle. So when it has entered, now when the left ventricle contracts, the oxygenated blood enters through aorta. Okay. Now this aorta is consisting of oxygenated blood, and this oxygenated blood is passed via arteries to all the parts of body. To all the parts of body. So this is about how oxygenated blood is pumped via left atrium and left ventricle to all parts of the body. Now as I said you, in respiration, process of respiration, this oxygen, now I will just tell you in diagram, these are the cells of the body. Now this blood is consists carrying oxygenated blood, right? Now this oxygen goes to the cell by the process of diffusion. It utilizes the cell oxygen which is present here, and breakdown of glucose takes place, and the byproducts are carbon dioxide along with energy along with water, right? So we will bother only about carbon dioxide. Now oxygen is taken by this cell, it is taken, in turn it gives the carbon dioxide into the body. I hope the concept is clear. Oxygen which is taken by the cell gives out carbon dioxide in the same blood. Now the blood from all parts of the body. Now this blood is oxygenated blood, but this blood is a deoxygenated blood which is carrying carbon dioxide. Now this deoxygenated blood, again it comes to same reverse process. It goes to Vena Cava. So the blood from deoxygenated blood from all the parts of the body enters through Vena Cava into the right atrium. So this is deoxygenated blood. It enters into right atrium. Now again right atrium contracts. When this right atrium contracts, the deoxygenated blood enters into right ventricle. When this right ventricle contracts, here one more point. It enters from right atrium, it enters into right ventricle by tricuspid valve. Right? Now, when the deoxygenated blood has come to right atrium, it contracts. Blood has entered by this tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Now, when this right ventricle contracts, the blood enters into pulmonary artery. The blood enters into pulmonary artery, and this pulmonary artery is connected to lungs. Okay, it contracts and it goes to pulmonary artery, and this pulmonary artery gives the deoxygenated blood to lungs, and from lungs it is exhaled out as carbon dioxide. So this is all about the circulatory system or pumping action of heart in the body. I hope the concept is clear to you. If any doubts and clarifications, you can please contact me and get the doubts clarified. So this ends the topic of circulatory.